Hey, welcome to the Strong Roots podcast. My name is Kristin Hill, and we are so excited that you're tuning in today. Our prayer is that you would move one step closer to Jesus through this series. So go ahead and check out this next episode. Hey guys, welcome back to the Strong Roots podcast. We are in our motherhood season, and I'm here with Candiss, and we're going to be talking about fostering and being a mom and all the stuff that goes with that. And she is a powerhouse. Like, she is one fierce mama. And I can't imagine interviewing anyone better. I literally was praying so hard that she would say yes. So I'm so glad that you're here. And I cannot wait to ask you questions to pick your brain and learn more how this even works and how this has affected your life. So would you mind talking to us about how this came about and your journey into motherhood?
Yeah. So when my husband and I got married, even before we got married and talking about kids, we just always knew that we would like to have a lot of kids. We would completely open to having a house full of kids.
Yeah.
So we just thought, well, we would have biological kids first, and then much later on down the road, we would look into fostering or adopting or, see whatever the need was at the time. And so we had our biological kids, and it was a rough road for us. I had complicated pregnancies and things. And when I was pregnant for the fourth time with my third child, it was just a really hard pregnancy. And I just really felt like God was saying, okay, this will be your last one, you know. And so we talked about that a lot and discussed that and decided, that was the end of our biological kids. And it was really hard for me because I had just always just assumed that, I would have give birth to lots of babies, So that was hard and took a while to accept that was God's plan, for us. But so when our third child was a baby, I really started thinking more about the fostering, adoption, and talked to other parents, was going to conferences, reading, all sorts of things, just trying to get more information, figure out, the different ways to go about it, figuring out the need and things like that, and kept putting it off because we had we had a house full already,
Yes. And ministry. Weren't you doing first kids too at that time?
Not quite then, but just volunteering and kids stuff, and my oldest daughter was starting school. It was a busy house, and so it just seemed crazy to us, you know, we've got our whole lives ahead. We were young. We were we've got plenty of time. So we just kept putting it off. For about a year and a half, we just put off that strong feeling of we need to do something to help kids. And then one Sunday, we just, after a sermon, which I can't even remember what the message was at church, I just remember on the way home thinking, wow, we should really do something. I think it's time. I think God is calling us to do something. So we talked about it a lot and prayed about it more intensely than we had ever before about that. And it was a Sunday, so we were home together. So it was all throughout the day, and we're just we don't even know where to start. What, what's the need, or how can we best help kids? Excuse me. So then the very next morning, I got a call that some kids that we knew were going into foster care. And, it was first thing in the morning. And I said, well, how can I help, And she was like, well, you need to go get your foster license.
Wow.
So it was, probably not even 24 hours after the fact of praying, God, how do you want to use us, you know? How do we start?
Yeah.
It was just plain as day. I had a caseworker say, well, why don't you start your foster license? So we started calling and got everything set up on that first day. Got our foster license and started fostering about 6 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
So 6 years.
Yeah.
Did it go by fast? Does it feel like 6 years?
It feels like it went really fast. So we were just talking the other day that there's a lot that's happened in between there, you know?
Yes.
So now we have 4 forever kids, and we've had 12 kids that have called me mom. And then plus all the kids who come for like 2 days or 2 weeks and things like that. So that would be a lot more kids.
Yes.
Because sometimes, you know, you get a call for an emergency placement and you take the kids for just a day or 2, and then they find family or something else. So,
wow.
yeah.
Is that pretty, like, blow your mind? I guess, does it feel unbelievable? Like, wow, I've had that many kids in my house.
Right.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That is so cool. So God does call us. You talked about him calling you. He calls us to care for widows and orphans. Can you talk about the call in your family to foster and how that, like, I know you kind of did, but like how that works in your everyday life?
Yeah. So we've really tried to, well, I said we have 4 kids, and so we really try to teach them like how Jesus would want us to live our life, and like that he puts us here for a reason, to do his work. And so we want to keep our kids' main focus and mindset on a mission, you know?
Ooh, that's good.
So that's always our focus on, like, why we do what we do. And, like, what better way to teach your kids than actually have it in your house, you know?
Yeah.
So that's really, I mean, Jesus wants us to care and love for others.
Yeah.
And so they can have, like, literally hands-on because they're there playing with the kids or, you know, sharing their things. And if they come last minute, I'm like, all right, guys, what do we have, you know? And all of my kids are trying to find, like, a special toy for them, you know. They wrap them up and give it to them, you know.
Right.
So that they can have a little present when they come. So
I imagine you've had to say no to a lot of other good things. What have you had to say no to in order to do this thing God's calling you to do?
Yes. Well, actually, I was children's director and worked at church.
Yeah.
And we had 4 kids at the time, and it was manageable and going good, but I just, like, felt this really strong calling again. Like, God was saying, okay, you did good. Your work here is done. Now I have this other job for you. And shortly after, we got 2 more kids. And so I wouldn't have been able to put all of my focus. You know, I would have had too many places.
Yep.
Because it's not just like babysitting kids. It's like you've got the court and the caseworkers and the therapy appointments and doctor's visits and all those things. So it definitely adds in a lot of time and extra work.
Yeah.
Sometimes when we have kids who just need a lot of care and attention at that time, I have to say no to, you know, some other things or simplify life a little bit more.
Right.
So
how has it affected your kids?
It has, like, definitely taught them sacrificial love, for sure.
Yeah.
There've, you know, been other times where, like, my daughter wanted us to, you know, coach her soccer team and things like that. And it's like, well, I have to say no right now because I have 3 little tiny kids and, you know, I can't do that while I do this. But it's also showed them that there are, like, other people out there that need love and attention and care, and that's more important than me being their soccer coach right now. You know, not that that's a bad thing, and we still do that when we can. You know, we love to do those sorts of things. But I guess it teaches them how we, like, prioritize, like, what we're doing and in our mission, you know, keeps us focused.
How important is explaining the why to your kids? And I'm sure, does it take a lot more time instead of just being like, we're just not coaching you?
Yes. Yep. It's always the why, for sure. Because I think our kids would get very irritated if, you know, I mean, new kids come in, you know, when friends come over and play and they're taking toys or whatever and taking up their space. It's, like, fun and cute, but after a few hours, it's kind of like, wait, that's my stuff, you know? Or even just, like, the extra time and attention we take, you know, if we get a baby or whatever, the extra time and attention that we take for them, you know, we have to tell our kids why we do what we do. Because I think they would get, even more irritated when we tell them, okay, we're loving these kids because Jesus called us to.
Right.
Like, oh, okay. My toys don't matter then.
Right.
My space doesn't matter.
What do you wish someone would have told you 6 years ago? Like, yeah, because you've learned a lot in the last 6 years.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing would be, I kind of went into this thinking, oh, I'm going to help kids. Mm-hmm. I'm going to basically babysit them,
Yeah.
And it's so much more than that. Like, these kids have a whole family to love,
Yes.
that they came from. And instead of just focusing on the 1 or 2 or 3 children in your home, like, loving their whole family and supporting their whole family is huge.
Like their mom and their dad and
Yep.
their... Okay.
Yep.
How do you do that?
It's all different ways because every situation is different.
Yeah.
Sometimes parents are hesitant to have a relationship with us, and that's okay too. But, I try to tell them, that we love them and we'll support them. And, if they want a relationship with us, like, we would love that.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes it doesn't always go, picture perfect the way you would want it to. But that's okay too, because it's all in God's time,
Did God, I don't know, in my imagination, I feel like times in those lives where I'm like, it's going to go this way. And then God's like, no, it's not. Like, did you have to get broken a couple times to then be open to, like, whatever you want, God?
For sure. Yep, for sure. You hear, like, success stories where everyone just gets along and it's, the 2 families are just happy and best friends. And it doesn't always work out like that. And, I just have to have compassion and empathy and understanding of, how would I feel if I was in this situation, or, I would be kind of, who is this woman? They don't know me. And I'm taking care of their kids. So that's got to be hard.
Oh, yeah. It's hard as a mom just letting your kids get babysat for a day.
Yeah, for sure. Like a big list of things, like, this is what you do, and there's no time for that. So,
right.
But whenever I see them, I try to, what do you want me to do with your baby? Or how do you do things? Or,
Right. And even the mom guilt.
Yeah.
I mean, every woman who has kids, like, struggles at overcoming that, right? Mm-hmm. But I can't imagine if I had my kids taken away, even if I pretended like I didn't care, how much it would actually care.
For sure. Because, they're going through a rough time no matter what the circumstances are. And everybody needs help at some point or another,
Absolutely.
Yeah. So sometimes people just don't have that support already.
Yep.
So that's what we try to. That is our goal of being a support. It doesn't always work out that way, but we try.
But it's cool that you persevere and, like, we're gonna continue to try even when we've been hurt, even when it's gone horrible.
Right.
Like, just, like, keep going.
Right.
I love that. So how have you, talking about that and restoration and family, how have you seen God's love for His children through your restoration work in fostering?
Yeah. It's been really great to see, some kids just completely thrive, and the healing that God has done in their lives, like our son, just things, he had orthopedic things, and just to see how doctors were like, well, he won't walk until this or whatever, and he's just a go-getter, and and God has totally like healed him in a lot of ways, and a lot of other kids, going back with their families, and it's just so great to see how God works through all of that. We have had a lot of kids who, you pray for them and God loves them, and you feel like you're doing all the things that you should be doing to help them, and God loves them, but they still struggle, or it didn't quite end up the way you thought with their family or things like that. Yeah. So there's always trauma and heartbreak in it. and it doesn't always, I can't always see the end result of that. So, just if you're praying and you're praying for these kids and their families and you feel like you're doing all the right things and like, why isn't God healing it, or why isn't it, it's like sometimes that happens, but I mean, I've only been alive for 30 years. I can't, see the whole outcome. So we always have hope and faith that God is a good God and he has a bigger plan than what we can see through it. So I might not see it on earth, but we have hope that, he will restore.
Mm-hmm. That you're planting seeds. It's kind of cool you get to be on the front line of miracles.
Yeah.
Like to see him be healed. Like, I'm sure because you're praying and because you're touching so many lives, like you are getting to see God do wonders as much as sometimes you see nothing.
Right.
But you have hope that there's seeds of planted that will happen.
Yes.
But it's kind of cool. Like, I'm sure you're in awe a lot.
Yeah. Well, and that, I think those, like great, like miracles that we see firsthand, like carries us through the times when we're like, well, God, why didn't you do it this way? Or, like this kid is still really struggling. Why? But we've seen so many times how faithful and good he is. Yeah. That carries us through the times when it may take longer or we don't see it firsthand.
Do you find it important to write things down that were amazing?
For sure. Yeah.
So because how easy to forget, right? Or when you're going through the hard times, like I need to read through like all the cool things God has done because I'm losing hope. You know?
I for sure write down the very, if God tells me something or if I see like this huge healing, I make sure I write it down, every detail, because it's crazy how you forget those details.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Even a week later, you're trying to retell someone and you're like, shoot, I should have wrote it down. Right. Oh, it's so good. So have you battled fear in this? And practically speaking, how do we battle and walk in love, not fear?
For sure, fear. Like that's actually a big one of mine, just life in general, me as a person. And so that's totally something that I battle. Every time I get a phone call from a different number, all the spam calls. Yes. Well, I have to answer all those because you never know if it's a caseworker, So every time I answer the phone, I'm like, oh, who is this, And I do get fear. I mean, we always, like, it's the first thing. I don't think you could do this job, and not have a little butterflies or nervousness because I mean, it is kind of crazy, you know? The fact that we're like, oh, yeah, sure, just bring the kids over. It's 2 a.m. We'll find something for them, Yeah. And so our first thing is we just give it to God and say, if you want us to parent these kids for now, you make it happen, And we are here to be obedient to you. Yeah. And we just take the first step. Like if you've ever heard the saying, like, you don't have to see the whole staircase to take the first step. Right. So we just have faith, like, if he brings these kids to us, we take the first step of faith, and then he's got it all figured out. Right. And we just, little by little, the next step to be obedient to him. Absolutely. So, last 2 questions. Yeah. Okay. So what would you say to somebody who's considering this? Who's like, ooh, on the fence. They tuned in because they're like, ooh, I feel God calling me this, but I don't know. Yeah. So we were very, like, we don't know for a really long time. Yeah. And I like to, like, triple check God, like, just to make sure he's telling me the right thing, Yes. Because I pray and he tells me and I'm like, but maybe I just wanted him to say that, or whatever. And there were a lot of hesitations, like, people thought we were crazy because we were busy, there's never like a perfect time when everything in your life is going to be all ready to go for it, right? So I just really, if God's calling you to do it, like just do it, like just take the first step. But the main thing is like you're loving their whole family. Like all of the kids who come to us, like they love their family, they miss their family, no matter the circumstances. And you just have to be willing to be there for whatever these kids need. whatever they need at the time, and for the whole family.
Right.
So, and I mean, there is a lot of extra work as far as like appointments and caseworkers and things like that, but it's manageable.
Yeah.
You figure out a way.
Yep. Yeah, you make time. That's good. So, how can we best support moms in our life who are fostering?
Well, the best way is to pray.
Yeah.
For sure. Pray and just check on them, I think.
Yeah.
When we get busy and I find myself forgetting to like reach out to friends or things like that.
Yes.
So I guess just check on foster moms.
Yeah.
Check on them, like a meal is helpful.
Yeah. What's a good question to ask? Because sometimes you get like,
Yeah.
how are you doing? Feels so like blah, mundane,
yeah.
but what's a good question?
I guess like how the child or children are doing and how the rest of your family is doing. Because that's a big one. To not forget that we've brought new kids into our house, but that changes the dynamic of the whole family.
Oh, for sure. And I think it's easy on the outside to not even comprehend that.
Yeah.
Even if you told us, like, it changed the dynamic, it's just like, okay, praying for that one, and then, whoop.
Right.
That's great.
Right. Because our whole family has to be, in a good place or in a good state to help the kids and the family that we're trying to work with,
Right.
So we all have to like work together and keep everybody focused and on mission,
Absolutely. Oh, that's so good. Thank you, Candiss.
Thank you.
And I want to challenge the viewers, if you are listening and you are contemplating fostering, I want to challenge you to pray. Just like Candiss saying, triple check.
Yeah.
Do your due diligence. If you are feeling that pull, do your research. Pray all the harder. Have your friends come alongside you and pray. Talk to somebody who is a foster mom so they can answer your questions. And if you are listening and that's not what you feel God calling you to, but you know someone who is doing it, check in.
Yeah.
Like Candiss said, ask the deeper questions, how it's affecting the dynamics of the family. Ask them how you can be praying for them. Drop off a meal once in a while, but don't forget about them. Even if it takes putting a reminder in your calendar, like I think like you said, with all the doctor's appointments and the visits and all that stuff, they can feel disconnected and be disconnected, understandably so.
Right.
So making sure that you are intentionally connecting with them, I think could be a huge help because you need support as you're supporting these families. So thank you guys so much for listening, and we cannot wait to catch you next time. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to follow us on our other social media platforms. We don't want you to miss out on any future content. Thank you so much again, guys. I hope you have a great day. And I want you to know I am personally praying that your roots stay strong.